Well, tonight on Weather Unfiltered, we are talking tropics and our first named tropical storm. Mike Bettis, Alex Wilson, former director of the National Hurricane Center, Dr. Rick Knabb tonight.
Yeah, we've got Amanda in the eastern Pacific, thankfully. This one unlikely to affect land, but this is not the last system that could form. Sometimes the tropics, things happen in quick spurts, and the other systems could form a lot closer to Mexico and Central America. What does that mean for the Gulf Caribbean side?
Those are some great questions, Dr. Knabb. You know, this is one that reminds us it's time to pay attention, right? So at the very least, a non-land threatening system tells us it's here.
Well, let's show you what's going on with Amanda. Again,
we've got that influence of the rain showers, 80 in New Orleans, so not too bad. And then upper 80s, close to 90 around the Dallas area. Houston, we look at your monthly rainfall, adding up to an average annual rainfall of just about 52 inches. On average, June would be our rainiest month. So 6 inches on average for the city of Houston. Again, we've been watching rain shower chances today, and we'll continue to watch the influence of all that Gulf moisture. 5 years of June rain. Now, average rainfall again for the month of June is about 6 inches. Last year we had about 5.25, but 2024 way over the average, 7.8 inches coming down. 2023 about half of average, barely anything in 2022. And then look at 2021. My goodness, over 9 inches, 9.33 inches of rain coming down. So the months can be very hit or miss. And again, that's why we end up with the average of 6 inches. Doesn't mean every June you get that amount. Houston, we've got the chance of rain showers continuing into tomorrow. Hit or miss, but 70% chance. I think we'll see decent coverage across the area. Some spots miss, but I think there will be more hits in the area. Saturday and Sunday, scattered showers. Temps holding in the low to mid 80s through the start of the weekend. I think by Sunday we may peak in the upper 80s, but again, staying pretty close temperature-wise. I want to go back to that. I did the old double click. 74 in Houston. Again, rain cooled air. We've seen some of the showers and thunderstorms farther to the north and to the west of town, but in Houston proper, it's generally been just rain, adding to a slowdown for your late day commute. So count on that if you're waiting on somebody to arrive home this afternoon. Maybe taking them a little bit longer with those rain showers. Now, overnight, things begin to settle. I think we see a little less activity, but by tomorrow morning, you can already see that southerly flow coming off the Gulf. Showers and thunderstorms, I think, for the morning drive. Maybe not widespread, but there will be some out there. And then through the afternoon hours, again, scattered hit or miss thunderstorms all across the metro area. And this would include outside of Houston as well. So eastern Texas, closer to the Gulf, will continue with all that moisture. You see, we do the same thing again on Friday. So Friday morning commute, maybe dodging some showers and thunderstorms yet again. In New Orleans, Thursday, 83, mix of sun and clouds. I think an isolated shower thunderstorm chance. Now Friday, Saturday, we're going to ramp up those opportunities for rain and storms. Unfortunately, I know for New Orleans, what are the days we like to be out and about? You're touring the Garden District, you're walking the French Quarter. Friday, Saturday could be pretty iffy when it comes to rain chances. And even Sunday, honestly, while it's less in the way of thunderstorms, I think a decent opportunity that we see the light rain continue. So that's going to hold those temperatures in the low to mid 80s. It's going to be muggy. So hair days, all bad across the board. Right now in New Orleans, where we've got that mix of sun and clouds, but more of that wet weather farther off to the west. Lafayette getting absolutely drenched right now. So that stretch of I-10, very heavy rain. Other spots, it's light rain. You know, the lower settings of the windshield wipers will do the trick. But moving through the overnight and into tomorrow morning, we're going to be watching for more shower chances. Starting to increase, I think, by lunchtime around the New Orleans metro and points east, or rather points west again. Lafayette to Baton Rouge to New Orleans. These would be spots along I-10 that could see the rain showers and thunderstorms. Lesser chances tomorrow. I think they increase in likelihood coverage for the day Friday and Saturday. And then we look at Dallas. Thursday, it's a chance of some spotty thunderstorms. We'll do that again on Friday. Better opportunities for more coverage, more rain, more thunderstorms coming your way Saturday and Sunday, Mike.
Yeah, it's going to be a repetitive forecast.
I thought we were going to get a break. We had a really, really stormy, severe season. Houston. More opportunities, at least for the western part of the state, coming for the end of the week. Now, tomorrow afternoon, we've got our cold front pushing to the south and to the east. We've got moisture streaming northward, so plenty of moisture being pumped into the region. That front provides the lift. So as we lift that warm, moist air, we see clouds, we see rain showers, we see thunderstorms develop. There will be modest energy for storm development. So that's why it's not like a high-end risk of severe weather, but there's at least enough energy to get those storms going. Mid-level winds are also going to help to provide the lift, and they'll be moving those storms from west to east. Damaging hail and wind will be threats with these storms. Here's the hail risk. Anybody in purple could see a quarter-size hail. That's severe criteria hail, 1 inch in diameter. As has been the case throughout the week, though, there is a zone where the Storm Prediction Center says, I think we kick it up a notch. Potential for 2-inch diameter hail or larger from parts of Wyoming and southeastern Montana through the I-90 corridor there in South Dakota and northwestern parts of Nebraska. That would be egg-sized or larger. So that's the real damaging stuff. We start the morning with some of the lingering showers from today's storms left over in places like Minneapolis, reloading our thunderstorms during the afternoon across, again, sections of Montana and Wyoming to start, western Nebraska, and they'll be moving east through the late evening into the early overnight hours. You can see by 2, 3 o'clock eastern South Dakota, some big wind potential. Still dealing with rain to start the day on Friday, also watching parts of the Midwest. Now, Friday, severe chances move farther east and start to include some major metros across the plains. Omaha, Nebraska, Des Moines, Iowa. These would be spots to watch. Our timing, again, morning hours, we've got rain across Wisconsin and eastern Iowa. Moving through the afternoon and evening, though, that's again when those thunderstorms get going. Mike?
All right, Alex, thanks a lot more to come here on the show. Communities too long. We're going to keep you covered here on the radar. A lot going on tonight. Severe weather, tropics are coming alive as well.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. You know, the storm not going to make landfall on any land areas, but a good reminder that the season is here.
Indeed. So let's talk a little bit more about what's going on with Tropical Storm Amanda in the Eastern Pacific with Dr. Knabb. Dr. Knabb, what are your thoughts on this one, where it goes, what it does, and what's it mean for, this early season?
It's just about on schedule. Early June is when we, on average, get our first East Pacific storm, but it also means the conditions are getting more conducive in general in the East Pacific, and we have other systems that could form. So could the B and the C storms be right behind? That's at least a...
Time to talk some tropics. So the Atlantic hurricane season just began on Monday. The Pacific hurricane season began May 15th, and there's things happening out there now.
Yes, there are. We've got Tropical Storm Amanda in the Eastern Pacific. Not unexpected. You've been watching these areas.
And we are definitely in the time frame where we would expect to get our first East Pacific named storm by about now. And it's often the case that when you're in late May and into June, things start to ramp up on either side of Central America. So the fact that we have areas to watch there is not real surprising. And did you know that the average date for the first named storm in the East Pacific is June the 10th? The average date in the Atlantic is later. But we've had about every other year you get a named storm in the East Pacific in May. And the East Pacific just tends to ramp up sooner. The Atlantic hurricane season is one of the most peaked hurricane seasons around the world. East Pacific is a little more, steady throughout the year, but it is not super early to be getting an East Pac storm. People are saying, wow, we're getting an East Pac storm in early June. Does that mean everything is ramped up? Look at how much more ramped up East Pacific has been in past Mays with hurricanes and major hurricanes.
I was a little surprised to see Atlantic average first tropical storm June 20th. Obviously, we wait longer for the other ones. You pointed out there might be more activity following Amanda pretty quickly, so that would follow this chart. Yeah,
and so when you realize that the first storm forming in the East Pacific in June is actually late compared to past years, it's not alarming by any stretch that something is getting going in the East Pacific. However, when you realize, number two, that the East Pacific tends to stay busier until we get to mid-August, we should expect the East Pacific to be busier than the Atlantic. But what does, to your point, all of this flurry of activity mean, for something trying to form near Central America? We have to do what I call peel the banana. If things are happening in the East Pacific, the Western Caribbean, the Gulf might only be a week or two behind.
You see the influence. You see where El Nino is, right? That's off the South America coast. How much influence does that have then, in the Eastern Pacific farther north?
El Nino years tend to be above average in the East Pacific and even in the Central Pacific out toward Hawaii. So if you're enjoying the good weather that you typically have in June, hurricane season doesn't really start in Hawaii in June. It's July and especially August. That can change in a dramatic way. So El Nino definitely matters for making the East Pac and the Central Pac a little busier than average. But look at how much warmer than average we already are on the Atlantic side. So like a couple of years ago when we had a strong El Nino in the Atlantic, was above average with regard to the numbers of hurricanes and major hurricanes. If you're warmer than average, you can fight back against the El Nino, which tends to lessen Atlantic hurricane activity. Even in most El Nino years, the past couple decades, we've had at least 2 major hurricanes on the Atlantic side. So just because El Nino tends to favor East Pacific activity doesn't mean the Atlantic is canceled for this year.
Well, and as you like to point out, one of the areas where we usually have those warmest of waters is the Gulf. We always say the Gulf plays by its own rules. It does not care whether it's El Nino, La Nina, or something in between.
And that's especially true at this time of year because those 2 areas to watch down near southeastern Mexico and Central America, that's a sign that zones get hit a lot. But these slow-moving multiple systems that could form near southeastern Mexico over the next week or two, that means that we might be dealing with that pattern for a while. And I would say it's not 0% chance that over the next week or two something happens in the Gulf Caribbean side because of that pattern setting up.
Having said all of that, tell anything about the types of storms we should expect to see? Should we expect to see more intense storms? Should we expect to see more heavy rain producing storms?
In the East Pacific, yeah, I would be concerned about that. And it could be a late loaded hurricane season as well. And so Amanda is only the beginning. And in an El Nino year, once you get into July and August, those waters get even warmer. We could have a flurry of hurricanes and major hurricanes even before the Atlantic wakes up. But I'll say in general, for early season activity, in the East Pac and Atlantic, it tells you nothing about what the peak of the Atlantic season will be like.
Thanks, Dr. Knapp.